So I've been reading this book called The Upstarts, and it traces the journey of Airbnb and Uber. It's quite a fascinating book. The bit that got me yesterday was how Uber really challenged the incumbent taxi industry in every city that it went into, and it won probably more than it lost. But it was really interesting because the taxi industry was kind of, in many cases, still in the 20th century. They weren't progressing. They weren't using technology well. Drivers are very resistant to change and so on. And look, they had a monopoly on people moving. Uber came in, kind of circumvented a lot of, of the regulations that applied in a lot of these cities, and it was doing the same thing. It was moving people from A to B, albeit more efficiently, and in a lot of cases for a cheaper cost. And then once the regulators came in to try to kind of regulate Uber or look at the city regulations, Uber could mobilize all its users, because the interesting thing with Uber is once you use it once, you're very, very likely to keep using it. So they had a very engaged user base that they could use to lobby, their local members and so on, a local council, to bring change that favored Uber. Fascinating book. I really recommend you read it. But it got me thinking about the financial planning industry, because, again, we have an industry that in many ways hasn't progressed massively over the last couple of decades. We don't use technology incredibly well. I look at technology all in different industries and see how well they're using it. The fact that I've got one of these, smartphones, and I think how that has changed my world. I mean, the Apple iPhone's only been around for almost 11 years. So think back, what the heck did we do before iPhones? That's 11 years ago. So our industry is ripe for change. And what both worries me and both excites me is the idea of, an Uber, Airbnb type business coming into our industry and completely changing it. Because we're not in the financial planning industry necessarily. It's more the outcomes of what we do. We give people financial security. We help people manage their risk and so on. Can somebody else come in and do that better? Just as Uber did. Uber didn't try to build a better taxi necessarily. Uber realized it was in the business of moving people from A to B, and it tried to work out a better way of doing that. So have a think about that this weekend. Fascinating. Again, the Upstarts, fantastic book. Recommend it. Recommend it. So it's a great, great, great read. Have a good weekend.